We are live. Welcome to the Orlando Magic podcast brought to you by the Five Reasons Sports Network. We don't have a name for this yet, so if you guys have any ideas, make sure you drop them in the comments right here. Obviously, Five Reasons Sports, if you guys know us, we're known for mostly South Florida sports coverage, but we are starting to branch out. I'm here in Orlando. Of course, we got Josh here in Orlando joining
How
us
you
from
guys doing?
9450 Media as well. First off, my man, how's the day going so far?
It's going pretty good. Going pretty good. Can't complain. How's your day going?
Going good, going good. Coming off of a loss yesterday, which isn't the best thing for the Orlando Magic, but it was a competitive game. It wasn't like the first two losses that they had against Cleveland, where it was more of a blowout. They had a much better showing offensively. The game really could have gone, like you were saying earlier, anyway. But at the end of the day, it's 3-2 Cleveland. They're heading back to Orlando. They did their job. They protected home court. We got to do ours now, protect home court here in Orlando. So before we get into breaking down game six, I just kind of want to get your recap a little bit on game five, some of the positives, some of the negatives, and just what you saw overall. So if you guys are new to the channel overall, make sure you guys, first off, like the video, show us your support. Make sure you guys subscribe. It's free as well. And make sure you follow my boy Josh Bogarty's channel and his network over on Twitter and Instagram as well. He'll be plugging that stuff later as well. But yeah, overall from yesterday's game, game five, 1 point loss to the Cavaliers. What did you see from the Orlando Magic yesterday?
Definitely a confident team, a more confident team than what we saw in the first two games. I think the first two games they were kind of going through a feel out phase. This is still a young squad. I think the average age is about 22, 23. So, we got some young guys on that squad, but they uh, they definitely look more confident out there, keeping pace with the Cavaliers, not being forced to play their game. Um, as we go into this, Franz definitely had a breakout game, so they definitely look confident out there.
Yeah, and I think it came, you saw it a lot more from the pace that they were playing at, right?
Right.
They weren't rushing things. The ball was moving a lot better as well, right? Which is something that you didn't see as much in game one and game two, but you did see a lot more in three and four. So it was good to see the ball movement, something that's a really big strength to hit you from so many different spots, right? And to have a lot of different players that can do different things, right? You had off the bench, Jonathan Isaacs giving you some great minutes,
Yeah.
even Markel Fultz doing some really good things as well on both sides of the ball. So I thought the Magic's bench did a really good job of holding their end of the bargain. There was a couple of times during this game where the Magic, they were down 6, 7, 8 points, I think was one of the biggest leads that the Cleveland got it to. But instead of that game turning into a blowout like you saw in game one and game two, you saw that game become competitive again, right? You
Yeah.
saw the Magic close that gap. And, for this team being as young they are, being able to do that in a playoff environment shows maturity, not just, from year to year, but throughout this playoff series. It shows that they're maturing, starting to understand the situations that they're in. And, even with Coach Jamal Mosley, I think just being the spearhead of that, right? He's not, he's a younger coach when you look
Right.
at just the broad scheme of his experience. But him leading that young team in Cleveland, although they didn't get the win, I think a big point that you said was his composure. Or
Mhm.
of the team, just the whole composure that they had, being able to keep it close, not getting too high, not getting too low, right? There was one moment that Franz drew a foul and he was going at it with the fans, which was pretty funny.
Yeah. Yeah.
You did see, I can't remember who it was, kind of calm him down and be like, hey, let's level things down for this. So that was good to see. Next thing I want to talk about is the breakout game that we saw last night, right? And
Franz.
when it comes to the playoff, yeah, and with Franz, it seems like he's having to get his footing as well, when it comes to finding his spot in the playoffs, and also it's becoming a little bit harder for him too because Paulo is becoming a lot better. Right,
Right.
Paulo's taking some of those strides and really becoming that 1A type superstar. So that's obviously still down the line for him to develop into, but you saw flashes of that tonight. So now for Franz, it's like, okay, how do you fit in as maybe a 1B, 2A type star, right? Where you're
Right.
working
Right. How do
next
you
to
make that dynamic work? I mean,
exactly.
you
So
know,
so what did you see that Franz did better, how he was able to fit his game in last night versus maybe some of the games that he struggled earlier in the playoff series?
just rising to the moment. I think having that those two early games where they weren't performing to the best of their ability. Um, you know, getting the feel of the home court back here in Orlando for Game 3, Game 4, that energy, I think it really traveled out to Cleveland. From what we saw, the difference between Game 5 and let's say Game 2 is just a different level. Like they're really into it now, especially Franz. He kind of caught himself and said, okay, I can play to the best of my ability on the road, which throughout this season they've kind of had a rough time. Um, so I think his confidence traveled with him, and that kind of spread to the whole team. They felt, like you said, they felt more composed out there. Yes, it's a playoff game on the road that comes with all the intangibles, the energy from the crowd, how you interact with the crowd, like you mentioned. But I think, he managed to maintain his composure and perform to the best of his ability.
Absolutely. And I always think that on a subconscious level helps that Mo's on the team, right? When you have, your older brother that you've,
Right.
played with internationally before on a championship level, right? Having that guidance is super important to allow yourself to mature through that series. So, yeah, I think Franz, even though he didn't necessarily shoot the best, had a much better impact on the game, than he did on road his two road games before in games 1 and game 2. But I want to talk about the star of last night, man.
Yeah.
I want to talk about Paolo, man. Paolo, when he played last night, they say in the regular season stars are made, but in the playoffs, that's when legends are born,
Yes.
right? But Paolo Banchero, man, I mean, last night, the shots that he was taking and making were elite level shots. That's the type of shots that you see a Kevin Durant make and take. Not only was he taking contested turnaround jumpers, pull-up jumpers, he was driving to the rim and finishing, right? He was taking threes and hitting on all levels. And I believe it was 39 points that he finished with last night, if I'm correct. But 39 points, 8 rebounds, 4 assists, right? Obviously,
All-star.
5 turnovers is you want to get that down a little bit. But as a young player, that's going to happen, right? But as far as Paolo having his best playoff game of his career, did you think that was a culmination of the first 4 games and, like you said, that energy traveling, or did you see some of those, or maybe just a little bit of a difference in kind of the way he was approaching last night's game?
I think it's very quick how these guys are getting experience. We're 5 games in now, and they have experience of being on the road, being playing against a team that Cleveland is a basketball city, through their history, so they bring that energy, and it kind of forces the Magic to get out of their comfort zone. And I think with his background, he knows how to rise to the occasion. And like you said, we saw that tonight, the other night, where he's taking these contested shots, but they're going in. He's looking confident out there. I remember he had a drive and had a really nice spin move, and didn't look. I deserve to be here, and I'm going to put on a show.
I mean, I think he's starting to understand how to use his physical assets to his ability, right? I mean, this is someone who's 6'10", 6'11", 250 pounds. Like that's essentially a LeBron build, right? If you're looking at just height and weight, if he continues to do that, and something, not to go too far off topic, something LeBron added to his game that turned him to a championship player when he came down to Miami was adding that post game, right? Adding the post up to it and being able to operate out of the post. So that's something I'm curious to see if Paolo's able to do. Like we talked about, 5 assists, right? Which is, going to go along with 5 turnovers, just kind of making some of those mistakes early. But, being able to operate on multiple levels offensively as a 3-level scorer, and then also diversify his offense when, okay, you're drawing people because you're scoring so much, being able to efficiently find outlets, because you have a lot of really good outlets on this team, right? You talk about Franz, right? Cole Anthony, good shooter as well. You have Suggs who can get hot. Gary Harris obviously got hurt yesterday, but he's someone that can as well get hot. I've always loved him even since his days in Denver. So this is a team that's really structured to be built around Paolo, because in this league, when you look at the elite level players.
Mhm.
Now, there has been a little bit of a shift back to some of the big guys, right? But if you look at the elites of mostly, if you look at the LeBrons, the Kevin Durant's, right,
Mhm.
before the Paul Georges, the Kawhi Leonards, it's
Right.
tall, athletic wings that can really
Right.
do a lot of scoring. And even with your bigs today, right? Let's say Jokic, right? He's someone that can do it at all three levels, hitting jumpers, but as well as finding his open teammates as well. So for Paulo, I think that's the next step for him is getting some of those turnovers down and increasing that assist to turnover ratio, because 39 points and the way he did it last night was absolutely amazing. But
Yeah.
unfortunately, didn't end up being a win. So I do want to ask your opinion on the final, not the final play, but the game sealing
The
play
block.
where the block, exactly,
Yeah.
where Evan Mobley, blocked Franz Wagner at the rim, right? And in that moment, when I saw the play happening, what I always watch it in kind of like a 2K mindset, where
Mhm.
if you're drawing two, you kick out to the wide open guy, right?
Yeah.
He drew help, and he had Mobley on him, who was the most effective defender on Paulo all night,
Right.
right? So you had Paulo's most effective defender on you. You drew a second defender. You had Paulo, in my opinion, halfway open for a 3-point shot. I think he should have kicked it out to Paulo instead of challenging Mobley at the rim. You know how good Evan is and what he can do when it comes to that side of things. There's a reason he was picked, why he was picked.
Right.
But, he ended up taking the shot. It was blocked, and that essentially sealed the game from there. So I'm curious on your opinion, if you agree with me, or if do you think maybe he should have challenged him and gone to the body a little bit more, used the left hand instead of changing to the right hand. Do you
Yeah.
feel he should have swung the ball to Paulo, or thoughts on that
It's
last
it's
play
it's
for the
funny.
block?
It's funny because there's been a lot of discussion on Magic Twitter or Magic X, where people have been discussing that shot. Should he have taken that layup? Should he have passed it out? I tend to lean to the side where he should have passed it out. But I think in that moment, in real gameplay, you know, Franz is trying to make the high percentage shot. And I think if you draw the help, you know, Evan Mobley was guarding Paulo. So I think in that situation, it could have went either way because, the what if is what if he does pass it to Paulo, they shift, they put a decent defender on him. So there's that. But I I still think, he should have passed it out. But I'm not going to knock him for taking the attempt. If he saw the opportunity, might as well take it.
Absolutely. I mean, they always kind of used to crucify LeBron for not taking the last shot. So you
Right.
don't want to, over make a young player overthink, right?
Hmm.
You don't want to
Yeah.
put him in that situation where he's doubting himself. So I love the confidence, right? I want to say that I did love the confidence from
Same
Fonz to
here.
be able to
Same
do
here.
that, right? But and also what I was thinking is like you've seen how hot Paulo was, man, and what he was doing to keep them in that game. You
Mhm.
also got to go with the hot hand, right? You
Right.
gotta you gotta go with the guy that's hitting shots. I mean, obviously you don't just look at the box score to kind of see how a player plays, but just looking at the efficiency of some of the shooting. I mean, for Paulo, 14 of 24 on 58%. For Franz, it was 3 for 11 on 27%.
Hmm.
So you have pretty much double of the efficiency for Franz that for Paulo did last night. So I
Right.
think in that spot, you want to realize like, hey, I might not be having the best night, but they still think I am. They still
You're
understand the
right.
threat I am,
That's
right?
it.
But let me pass it
Yeah.
to my boy because he's having a great night.
Yeah.
And I think that potentially could have. But like you said, defensive shift. They could have read it, and maybe Paulo could have, gotten caught in a moment or whatever it may be. You never
Mm.
know. It's always the what if game. But I do think you swing it to the hot hand as well as your best player in that moment. I also do feel like he should have touched the ball. Paulo didn't touch the
Yeah.
ball in that last possession.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
want your best player to at least touch the ball in the
Hmm.
last possession. So I do think that's something that Mosley will probably go over and maybe polish up when it comes to that. But I mean, at the end of it, it was a great learning experience, right? As
Right.
well.
Right.
So
I mean, when you look at it, they only lost by one. So,
exactly.
it could have been worse. It could have been, a replay of game one or game two. So for them to go out on the road, perform as well as they did, given the circumstances, I hear Cleveland was rocking that night. So, It's one of those things where it's a learning curve, and I think they play to the best of their ability, and we'll have to see where it goes for Game 6.
For sure. And speaking of Game 6, excellent transition, my man. First of all, let's get into it right off the rip because,
Yeah.
Game 6 so far, Yardy from Ja, you know me, I'm always going to be a Heat guy, but I'm in Orlando, right? So I'm going to be covering my
Yeah.
Orlando stuff just because I live out here. It's tough to make a 4-hour drive to go cover a Heat game, plus that 2-hour traffic over by
Yeah.
Biscayne. That, come on now, that's a little bit hard, Yachty. But yeah, as far as the Game 6 goes, so far every home team has won the game.
Right.
And I think something that I really liked out of the 2 wins from the Magic in their home wins was they were able to force Cleveland to isolate a lot of their shots, right?
Yes.
And force a lot of isolation plays and make them take tough shots, right? Now, obviously, as you already hear, Donovan Mitchell, one of the best players, in the playoffs. I think he's top 10 or top 12 in playoff points per game all time when it comes to that side of things, even from what he's done back in Utah. But he was taking tough shots, and the Magic were making him do that. And I think that's something you want to try to get back to when it comes to here. Now, offensively is the biggest change, right? You've seen it over 115, 120 the 2 times they're at home, under 100 the 3 times they're on the road. Why do you feel like that's happening? What do you feel? Do you feel like it is the energy of the crowd, just having like a playoff team
I
for the
think,
first time?
that definitely contributes to it. It's because when you face the facts, you're in hostile territory, and that can get into your psyche, and then there's all those intangibles that come with playing on the road during the playoffs. Their fan base wants it as much as the Magic fan base. So I think both teams are dealing with that, because Game 3 and Game 4, I got a chance to go to Game 4 and see the reception of the crowd, and when the Magic are up 20, that place is going crazy, the Kia Center. So it's one of those things of who wants it more, and I think the fan bases definitely contribute to that, and then you see that effect on how these guys play on the court.
Now, when it comes to the the play of the players, right? Because obviously the energy drives to it, and I think a big thing that you see as well when it comes to the play at home is the extra unselfishness that you might not see on the road, right? Because on the road you have these guys, or like Paolo last night was willing to take and make tough shots, right? Which sometimes is a blessing and a curse, because you want to be able to find the most efficient shot at the end of the day. You want to create good looks, right? I think when they're in Orlando, they do a really good job of creating good looks because it feels like the ball is moving without a thought, right? They're not overthinking their decisions. The ball is flowing. They understand where everyone is going to be, and they also cover for each other a lot better defensively. Something I saw last night, which was an issue for the Magic every time they kind of got into that 5 to 7 point hole, is their second and their help defense, right? They did not do a good job of their help defense. They were either rotating too late or trying to rotate early and then not leaving enough time for the defender that they're leaving to get some extra help on the back end too. So you saw, a good amount of open shots, whether it was from, a Max Strus, which was hitting some crazy ones. Got to give shout out to former Heedle, Max Strus. But, they were giving up a couple of extra things. And you see that when they're at home, guys are, one, just able to stay in front of their man a little bit better for some reason. But two, they're able to help a lot more and a lot more efficiently and create those turnovers, which for a young team, when you're able to create turnovers and get a high energy, high athletic team like the Orlando Magic running, I think that's when they're at their best. So that's what I want to see tomorrow. I think that's the biggest thing that I want to see that might be different from this previous game, because looking at the turnovers that they forced, only 10 turnovers, for the Cleveland Cavaliers in Game 5, right? That's a number that, as a young team, you want to push that up, right? Create more live ball turnovers, so that way you can create some more opportunities when it comes to the rim, and also just drawing fouls, 2-on-1 opportunities, 3-on-2. You have a very athletic team. I mean, guys like Paolo, even Cole Anthony can get up there, right? Jonathan Isaac is a huge dude who can do it
Yeah.
on both sides of the ball too, right? So you have a
Even
couple of guys
Wendell
that are
Carter, right? Yeah.
exactly right. You have guys that can jump on that team, so get some turnovers going. What's the main key do you think for tomorrow's game that you want to see?
For them to lock in, play comfortable. You know, they do have a better record. Well, at least for the regular season, they have a better record at home. So, I think that goes back to your point of them, just playing better at home, being comfortable, continue to get guys like Franz and Paulo fully involved. Because let's face it, they're the anchor of their offense. Cole coming off the bench, with the second unit, he's been great pretty much all season. So just keep that consistency with playing at home. Don't get too caught up in, yes, they did lose the last game, but it was only by 1 point. And I think, continue to get everyone involved, continue the success that they've had with game 3 and game 4, and just, play their game. I think when they're on the road, especially against these Cavaliers, they've been playing into the Cavaliers game, playing at their pace, and that upsets their flow. And I agree with your point. Get those turnover numbers on the Cavaliers a little bit higher. Get some second chance points, and I think things will swing their way.
Definitely. I think you said that's a big point to just being able to play confident. One player I do want to see be able to kind of play a little bit better is Jalen Suggs, right? I feel like he's
Yeah,
two different players when he's on the road versus at home. And, as the primary ball handler for the Magic, that's a guy that you want to see step up. I think he's, what was it, between the two games, it was like about 18 points per game between the two games at home,
yeah,
roughly, right?
yeah.
So, and then on the road, I believe it's sub 10, or
See,
close to
well,
that.
he's one of those guys that kind of thrives off the energy of being at home. I've seen it in person. He flips it like a switch, man. And I've kind of termed him, the heart of the team, because he takes in that energy, and it kind of passes through the other players, and you see that. You see them, okay, Jalen's lighting it up, or he's making the right passes, and it gets the team going, and helps them, get through those runs. And they just they play their game. They play confident.
Right. And when you have a point guard or at least an offensive leader that can get everybody going, just be that, chess master and set everybody up, even though he's not necessarily a Rajon Rondo type point guard, that's still something that, like you said, is just injecting energy through your teammates, just keeping the energy in the ball and letting that travel through. But outside of that, my man, closing thoughts before we close out here today, and also plug your company.
Yeah. I think the Magic take it coming back home. Game 3 and game 4 is an example of that. It'd be nice to see a 20-point lead at some point in that game, but I think the confidence will come back. They're comfortable playing at home, and I think they take game 6. Also, feel free to follow us on social media, 9450.media, 9450.media. Check us out on our website. It's the same handle. Yeah, and we'll take it from there. We'll see how the Magic go.
Absolutely. Got some fire t-shirts, man. So make sure you guys check out my boy
Appreciate
as
that.
well. And then, I do think, with as far as the Magic are concerned, I do believe game 6 will go their way. Like you said, that home crowd, I think is going to bring it, right? Facing an elimination game, that team is going to want it. The crowd is going to want it. That building is going to be rocking. So it's going to be an exciting situation to be in. Win or lose, it's going to be a good environment for this team to just use as for future growth, right? This is such a young squad.
That's a great point. That's a great point.
I think win or lose, it's going to be beneficial for this team. But obviously, being able to win game 6 and then try to go get one on the road for game 7 and maybe get it to the second round, hey, that's even better. Because if you can go to the second round as a first-time playoff team, hey, why not, right? But, hey, Josh Bogerty, appreciate you, my man. You guys know me. Appreciate you guys for all watching. If you guys don't already follow, like I said, make sure you guys follow us. We don't have a name for this kind of magic stuff.
We'll come up with something.
So come up with something in the comments, or we'll figure something out at the end of the day. But appreciate you all for joining. This is usually when I say let's go Heat, but but next time we'll see you guys after the next Magic game, and we'll talk to you soon.
Let's go.